Well, it got a lot right. And it's so funny. I am just constantly cracking jokes with my friends in the games industry. There'll be some announcement. And they're like, it's just like PlayStation Home, right? I'm like, yeah, we were thinking about that stuff back then. We were way ahead of our time.
You were.
Get ready.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Our in-studio guest today is Jack Buser. Jack has spent nearly 3 decades in the games industry, starting at Dolby Laboratories, where he helped bring Dolby audio into games on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and original Xbox. From there, he moved to Sony PlayStation, where he grew PlayStation Home to tens of millions of players. He also built the Instant Game Collection on PlayStation Plus and launched PlayStation Now, Sony's cloud gaming service, years before the industry caught up to the idea. He then joined Google to help build and launch Stadia, one of the first major cloud-native platforms, and today he is the Global Director for Games at Google Cloud, where he leads the organization's game industry efforts all over the world. In this role, he meets with game developers daily to explore how the cloud and AI can accelerate game development and deliver entirely new player experiences. He's also a good friend, and I think today's conversation is going to be an interesting one. Let's jump in. Welcome, Jack.
Thank
I'm
you so much.
glad you're here. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
It's a big deal to have you here. I know we know each other, as friends and colleagues, so it means a lot for you to take time to come and chat with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure. And this is my first time to your spot, like checking out your game collection and everything. It's awesome. We are definitely kindred spirits.
I think so.
Sure.
We may be separated birth. And hopefully we'll have time to talk about that at some point. There's a lot to get through because I definitely, like I was saying off camera, you have a meaty history, my friend. And I think that's a perfect segue to jump in. I wanted to start somewhere that I genuinely find interesting. So I think you, from my research, you studied electrical engineering at the University of Illinois.
That's exactly right.
You had a stint at Motorola paging products.
I did. Working on pagers, believe it or not.
Old school, right out of school. And then you ended up at Dolby, Dolby Laboratories?
That's right. Yeah. Very fortunate.
Which is, interesting because when you think of Dolby, you don't think of video games, but yet that's sort of where your games career started, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So, I knew I wanted to be an engineer because I was very into just technology and, of course, video games. Yeah. I also love synthesizers and electronic music and have done since, since I was a high schooler. So I knew I wanted to be in that area. I went to engineering school. And as I was in engineering school, my focus initially was to design synthesizers, right?
Oh, interesting.
That's what I really wanted to do. And I remember my advisor about halfway through said, hey, the entire synthesizer industry has left the US. So unless you want to move abroad, you're going to have to work on something like sound cards or something. And I remember thinking, that's incredible. Yeah. That's exactly what I would love to do.
Sign me up.
Video games and audio? Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Throughout my education there, I was young, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Was playing a ton of games and actually doing some freelance audio work for some games way back when, some Jaguar games that never came out.
No way.
Yeah,
That's
way.
Cool.
Yeah. And so anyway, I begged my roommate because he had scored an interview with Dolby Laboratories, and they were one of the few audio companies coming on campus. And he said, yeah, just take the interview.
Was that in the city in San Francisco?
That was actually in Champaign, Illinois.
Okay.
So where University of Illinois is. And I got the job. I was the youngest kid to ever get hired there. And I came in and started working on some of the early DVD players and stuff like that. And guess what had a DVD player in it?
Yeah.
Was the PS2.
Right. Yeah.
So the minute we found out from Sony that they were building a next-gen PlayStation, I said, I want to work on that.
Yeah, how do I get in on that?
That's right. And they said, sure, let Jack, he obviously loves games. So that was my story at Dolby was when I joined, they were purely, a cinematic surround sound company. I mean, any of your listeners that have ever seen a movie, you see the Dolby surround sound trailer.
Clearly. Yeah.
And my whole mission, almost from the day I showed up there, was like, we got to do this stuff in video games.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing, like evangelizing so early on. I also read that you hosted a podcast, Dolby
early on,
back when podcasts weren't even a thing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? I'm just
Sure.
curious.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe give me some tips.
Well, it was like you said, podcast had just become a thing, and it was a whole new way to like talk to an audience. And so my friend Craig Eggers, who worked there at the time, he was running the consumer electronics division, and the two of us got together and got some microphones. Obviously, Dolby had plenty of recording studios, so we worked with a good friend of mine, John Luce, and we set up a very, very early podcast. I think if my memory serves, we had something like 10,000 listeners way back when, back before it was even, you know, it was even easy to access these things. But it was great. We talked about games, we talked about announcements, and just had a lot of fun. It was awesome.
That's super cool. And then, so, you know, Dolby, I think their positioning, at least at that time, was really interesting because, you know, they were a technology platform supplier to the games industry, right? Not a developer or publisher. During that time, did that vantage point still inform how you think about, like now, like Google Cloud's relationship with game studios today?
Absolutely. So, you know, that first job that I had, first proper job in the industry, was really about a technology platform.
Yeah.
And so most of my days were spent talking to game developers, game publishers, console manufacturers, and first, you know, showing what the technology was capable of. And remember, we were going through that transition from SD to 2D. We'd already made the transition to 3D.
Yeah.
But, you know, still games were, you know, they were 480i, and you were starting to see early signs of progressive scan and like widescreen, and audio was a big part of that, right? Audio was in the DVD standard. You couldn't have a DVD without Dolby Digital. So we were working with Microsoft, with Nintendo, with Sony to try to figure out how do we allow these game consoles to have audio during gameplay that actually matches what you're hearing on your DVD movies. Yeah. Right. It wasn't easy back then. Right. And so there was a lot of innovation. It was quite cutting edge for the time. And I got to work with every major game publisher, all the big game studios, all the big console manufacturers. I mean, if you go back and you look at those old GameCube, PS2, original Xbox games, you flip them over, you'll see a Dolby logo.
Yeah, Dolby there.
Yeah. That means Jack was probably there at some point. Even look on top of your consoles, right? Look at the PS2, look at the PS3, look at the GameCube. Well, they all have, you know, the capability to do Dolby. Obviously, the original Xbox had the most amazing technology, which was that real-time Dolby Digital encoder. Yeah. That was crazy.
That was super cool.
Yeah. So it definitely relates to my work today. It's all about how do you build a platform that helps not only push the state of the art in terms of player experience forward, but how do you do that in a way that makes sense in the context of the business of game development and console manufacturing.
Yeah. What is the next logical step? You went to PlayStation. Like, how did that happen? Like, was it, you know, through your contacts and discussions through Dolby? Like, you just, you know, that was like your next natural progression. It just kind of worked out that you landed there.
Yeah. So I'd been working on the PlayStation 3 quite a lot. And prior to that, obviously worked on the PlayStation 2. So I knew a ton of people at Sony. Had gone to Japan a bunch of times. You know, we had done some pretty big deals over the years. And so I had a lot of friends working there, and it was actually GDC. I remember sitting in the audience and watching the presentation of Little Big Planet and PlayStation Home.
I remember that.
And at the time, I was hanging out here and there with Philip Rosedale, who had founded Linden Labs, Second Life. Mm-hmm. Red hot at the time, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was just thinking, man, I would just love the chance to work on that. And I had a number of conversations with the folks at Second Life about, like, hey, this belongs on a game console. Like, if you really want to blow this thing up, like, in the PSP had just come out, I'm like, you know, like,
it's great.
Like that was
it's great a metaverse before the metaverse.
That's right. And so, you know, when I saw that GDC, I was like, I have to figure out a way to work on this. And then the one and only, the great Carter Lipscomb gave me a call.
Rest in peace.
And he said, you know, I've just joined Sony relatively recently, and we're going to get the band back together, and I really want you to work here, and they're looking for somebody to run PlayStation Home, and I think you'd be perfect. And I was like, Carter, I really want to work on that. Like, that's my dream job. And so he went to my future boss and said, look, give this guy a chance. Yeah. You know, I know he's never run a virtual world before, but who has?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and this is your guy, I promise you. And before you know it, I had the job. It was incredible.
That's awesome. That was like, what, 2008?
2008.
Yeah.
That's right, 2008.
Yeah. Can, I know you touched on it a little bit, but I would imagine there will be some listeners who don't know what PlayStation Home is. Like, would you mind taking a moment? I mean, I can say it too, but from your, like, what was PlayStation Home? What was the promise?
Yeah, I find myself as I get older, I just turned 50 this year, and I realize that more and more people don't know what PlayStation Home is anymore. Yeah. But back then they sure did.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the time, the PlayStation 3, yes, we had the PlayStation Store, we had the PlayStation Network, but we were really thinking about innovative ways to connect players together in novel ways. And obviously this notion of virtual worlds, which today we call the metaverse, was quite popular. You know, you had Second Life making big waves in the news. And so this idea that you could have a social experience, but leverage the power of the PlayStation 3 to actually have that social experience be in full three-dimensional space. Persistent. You could have an avatar. You know, with the new technology that was, you know, we were taking games online, you could actually have like instances of some number of gamers all together with their avatars talking to each other in real time. That was new stuff, right? And so, I mean, coming in, when I first saw the technology right after I started, I was just like, oh no. You know, because there was barely any content. You know, we hadn't even gone into an open beta yet. You know, there wasn't much to do. But the theory was back then, hey, you know, we're just going to open the doors and there'll be these 3D spaces with not much to do. But once the gamers get in there, they're all going to talk to each other.
If you build it, they will come.
Turns out that's not how it worked. Turns out you got to give people something to do, right? So just like in the real world, if you're meeting a bunch of new people, it helps if there's a pool table, it helps if there's an arcade machine.
A basketball hoop.
Exactly. So as fast as we could, we turned it into a game platform. We realized, like, let's just get as many games as we can onto this platform because, you know, having a metaverse where you're just chatting at each other is incredibly boring. Like, we've got to, make it a game platform that's social. And we realized early on, like, hey, you know, maybe we could build a system where, you know, you could get special outfits, or you could build, at that time you could have your own apartment, you could decorate it up. What if we sold that stuff for like $1?
That was pioneering, right? That was before microtransactions were
the first microtransactions platform on a console, as far as I know. And we were basically looking at Farmville, if you remember that one.
I do remember Farmville.
And just saying, how do we do that business model on a game console? So, and we did it. We had, I think, by the time I left, we had something like 10,000 items published on the PlayStation Store. Like it,
that was
if you look at my entitlements on the PlayStation Network right now, you still see all that home stuff, like tons and tons and tons of home stuff.
You can still see it on your
it's all still there.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I mean, right, it's at one point it was like 40 million. You have up to 40 million people.
Yeah, that's right. I think I have a plaque in my game room that says 25 million, but we blew past that pretty quickly.
I'm curious, like, you know, we have Fortnite now with like live events, right? Persistent, you know, Roblox, obviously. Like, what did PlayStation Home get right that the rest of the industry didn't catch on, you know, until now?
Well, it got a lot right.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I am just constantly cracking jokes with my friends in the games industry. There'll be some announcement. And they're like, it's just like PlayStation Home, right? I'm like, we were thinking about that stuff back then. You know, we were way ahead of our time.
We were.
And hats off to folks like, you know, Pete Edward and the gang that like headed up the original development of the home platform and all. They really had this idea in their mind that they were going to build this type of platform. But it was a live service before live services were even a thing, right? When we launched, there wasn't much there, but over the next few years, we kept adding content. We listened to the community. We had an operations team. We were constantly adding games and new items and cosmetics and all kinds of stuff. And it really kind of showed where things were going to go over the next, 10, 20 years. So things like microtransactions, things like, you know, fully connected online platforms where it's not just head to head, but you actually have a community of people. This idea of having a community was very, very new. We were hiring community managers at PlayStation. What are those?
Right. Those there was no such thing as that.
You know, so, and it was you could talk. So like, how do you moderate? How do you keep that community safe? Like we were solving these problems. Like there was no playbook back then. We were solving these problems for the very first time. And that's where I like to be. With my career, I love to be on that bleeding edge where there is no playbook. You don't really know exactly where things are going to go, but you know that it's exciting. I can see that. Like, to your point, like the through line here is like you seem to always be, you know, probably by design, at that instance where, you know, there is a shift coming. You're kind of
helping direct where that's going. So it's really interesting as I've been doing my research to kind of see that every step of the way. And there's a lot there I want to talk about too. But I know, you didn't stick around at home the whole time, or you transitioned off. Like what else were you doing at PlayStation?
Well, home was one of our first big online platforms. Obviously the PlayStation Store was becoming huge at that time, and PlayStation decided that they wanted like a team just focused on all these new digital platforms. So at the time, PlayStation Plus was relatively nascent. We had done some experiments, but it hadn't really taken off yet. It was clear like selling games online on the website might be a thing at some point, and so they just needed somebody to help take these initiatives that were already sort of there, but needed to scale. They needed not quite 0 to 1, but kind of like 0.5 to 1, right? Yeah. And so that was really my job during those years, was to do the same thing that I had done for PlayStation Home, which is, take a great idea and just scale it, right? And make it something that was an actual business at the company. And so the first big thing that we tackled was PlayStation Plus. Yep. There's a whole team of us, a lot of these guys, shout out to Eric and Ross and the gang, Murray, wherever you are, there's a big gang of us working on PlayStation Plus. And the early vision was this idea that we had done some research with gamers that were already subscribed to PlayStation Plus. Sure. We said, of the things that are available to you through this subscription, remember we're talking PlayStation 3, like what are the things that you like? And they just came back and like, we like the games. Yeah. Of course you like the games, right? It was so obvious in retrospect. So we said, okay, let's take a couple handfuls of, good games, not brand new games, but games that have been out for, a little bit, and let's put them together into a console subscription. And no one had done that in a very long time. I mean, you could make a healthy argument that the Sega Channel had kind of cracked this way back in the day, but in the quote modern age at the time, there was nobody doing this stuff. No. And Xbox Live at the time was just going absolutely gangbusters, and we needed something. And so that aha moment of, hey, when you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, you get an instant game collection. And we're always going to be adding new games. And sure, we're going to rotate games out. But if you've already claimed that game, you can keep it, and like you could just grow your library over time as long as you're subscribed. I mean, that was a huge hit for us. Like players just loved it.
It still clearly is big part of, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but big part of PlayStation's business.
Yeah. It's still going strong to this day. And, that was definitely one of the first big aha moments for me were, coming out of PlayStation Home and then working on PlayStation Plus. I'm like, man, the digital aspect of this industry that is absolutely the future. That is where this is going. It was clear as day at that point in the industry.
Makes me sad as an old man who loves his physical goods, but you can't stop progress, right?
It's true. And me, I collect games all the time. I have a huge collection of physical games. I love it. I still buy physical games. And that's kind of another through line in my career is oftentimes when you're working on these very cutting edge projects, like everybody doesn't quite see it yet, right? And so a lot of your time is spent educating and evangelizing and building. But that's where I like to be. And it's not like you're leaving anything behind. It can all be part of the games industry, all of it, right? And it's constantly evolving and pushing the boundaries and moving things forward. And that's one of the wonderful things about this industry is it doesn't stay still. It's constantly pushing innovation forward.
Absolutely, yeah. The change always comes.
It always comes.
Sometimes it's hard to accept. We all like our things, but And at the end, you can have your cake and eat it too. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I look at the industry today and it's so diverse and there's so many different ways to enjoy entertainment. We were just talking about the AES Plus before we started recording. Like, what an incredible product. And just the fact that we're in an industry that can be big enough and inclusive enough to handle, even just such a wide diversity of experiences I just love it.
I do too.
I love it all.
I do too. And then you also worked on PlayStation Now, and cloud gaming.
Very early cloud gaming.
Infancy. So what was that like?
Well, I remember when those very first cloud game platforms started to pop up, like Gaikai and
Gaikai, of course.
And
there was one more. I'm
OnLive.
Yeah, OnLive. Thank you.
And Yeah, I remember playing them, and this was the first time, for people that don't know cloud streaming of games, basically the game is running in a data center somewhere
in the background, yeah.
Right, and you're getting a feed that you can actually interact with. So you're basically playing a video, if you will, in many ways. Yeah. And so when those first platforms came out and you were playing a game that was running on the internet somewhere else, like my mind was just blown. I was like, this is just incredible technology. And I remember Andy House, who was the head of PlayStation at the time, made the announcement that, we'd acquired Gaikai, which was one of the early pioneers. And they came to me and said, okay, let's make this a PlayStation thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so exciting. So we took everything we learned from PlayStation Plus and built a huge subscription, actually, that you could stream to your PlayStation 3, your Vita, connected Blu-ray players, if you remember those, early smart TVs, and you could have this huge library.
Anything with a web browser, right?
Hundreds of games, that was just so pioneering, so new. It really was actually kind of the first Netflix of games. It's a term that's been thrown around now, but it kind of was that. What an amazing ride. I mean, to take a digital platform like that and go from zero, that was absolutely from scratch, and build a business that was being enjoyed by countless people. Like that was really incredible. I love that so much.
I mean, you think about back in the old days, that, those days, like how much of a challenge was technology? Like,
oh, this is wonderful. Yeah. No, this is, so you look at home, you look at PlayStation now, like, especially in days, there was no cloud. Like, there was no cloud.
Oh, actually, the cloud.
One of the guys that I work with at Google now, he does a lot of innovative work on databases. He was actually at Sony.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Back in those days, working on that stuff at Sony. And we were just joking. This is earlier this week. We were joking, like, what a different age that was. None of this stuff.
No huge data center, where you could push your data back and forth.
Yeah, I remember the head of our content for home. She came to me. Her name's Catherine. She works over at Google now. Incredible woman. And she came to me. She showed me this paper. She said one of the hardest problems in computer science right now is how do you scale a multiplayer game to huge numbers of people? Like really hard to do. And at that time, but now we kind of just take that stuff for granted, right? The elastic cloud, and you launch a game. Just like we had none of that stuff. So I remember, like, even when we first launched home, like we had to turn it off, because so many people came in and started just knocking over the servers. Like the technology just wasn't quite there yet for that stuff. But I love that, because these platforms, when they get that kind of consumer traction, player traction, it pushes the technology. All of a sudden, we do need better databases and game servers.
We need to figure out how to support it.
So you can see the experience, the player experience, is actually pushing the state of the art of core technology forward. And if, I've been at Google for the last 10 years, and I remind people, like, a lot of the technology that we use at Google across any number of industries, a lot of this stuff started in games. We talk a lot about AI now. I'm like, guess who's been doing AI for 40 years? Right. The games industry. By the way, the GPU, you know what that G stands for? That's graphics, right? We've been doing this stuff for a long, long time. And again, that's one of the wonderful things about working in this industry, is because you're just at the absolute bleeding edge of technology at any given time. And you're, oftentimes you're 5, 10, 15 years ahead of other industries, which is incredible.
What's that like for you to, like, to be able to see sort of like, through like a Google or even PlayStation, like you see what's coming, but it's so far out there, it's hard for everybody else to understand it, like, is it like hitting your head against the wall a little bit? Like how, like, you know what I mean? Like, as an evangelist also, like getting out there and trying to, preach that, like, listen, this is kind of what the next thing is. Like, you should be thinking about it. Like, what is that like?
Well, I would imagine that it could be quite difficult. However, the one guiding principle that I've had in all these years is do what you love.
Love it.
Do what you love, right? Both you and I, we play games. I play games every single day, right? Every single day. And, it's absolutely been my passion since I was 4 years old, and I got my first Space Invaders cartridge for the Atari 2600. Like, I remember that moment, right? Like, that's one of my earliest memories. And my entire life has been, about games. And so when you love what you do, oftentimes even if people don't quite understand what you're trying to do, or maybe they misunderstand what because you feel so passionately about it, because you see it, because you're so immersed in it yourself, it actually is a joy, right? And then you start to find other people that see it too.
Yeah,
and then it grows and it grows. And before you know it, everybody just kind of takes it for granted.
Right.
And I can sit here with you, Greg, and tell the story of what it was like before everybody got it. You know, I love that. I love that.
I do too. I remember my mom taking me to May Company, maybe Macy's May Company, I think it was before. We had pre-ordered Pac-Man on the and, getting it home, it was a little disappointing, but I still loved it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You still played it.
Yeah, but it's to your point, like you absolutely have those memories, and that carries through with everything like that. It's such a powerful.
It really
gaming is powerful. Nostalgia is powerful. Nostalgia and gaming combined is insanely powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to continue along this arc. So PlayStation went to Google, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So did you go over there having that expertise with cloud gaming and PlayStation Now? Is that sort of where you first were headed when you got to Google?
Yeah, I had been at PlayStation. Gosh, it was going on 9 years or something like that. So I've been there for a long. It was my dream job.
Yeah.
The PlayStation Now was doing gangbusters. Plus had become this huge thing. Unfortunately, home was no more, which was heartbreaking. But we had certainly set the template for so many things that were happening at PlayStation at the time. Free-to-play games were a thing that were happening on the PlayStation Store. So we had pushed so many innovations. I was just my dream job. It was absolutely my dream job. And I started getting a call from somebody at Google. Hey, do you want to work at Google?
Good opportunity.
And I was like, look, I've got my dream job here. Yeah. Like, I just love this place so much. Like, I'm sorry, but like PlayStation, like this is, but they kept calling and they kept calling and they kept calling. And, if you look at my career, I've generally, at that time, I'd spent, roughly 10 years doing a particular thing. And I was pushing up against that boundary. And I said, it was one of those things where
you had a fork in the road.
Yeah, I just said, what the heck? And what's funny is Google wouldn't tell me what it was about.
Oh, how funny is
They would not tell me. It was so secret. Whatever it was, they would not tell me a thing. And I actually just remember thinking to myself, well, it has to be about games.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they wouldn't be calling me so much, right? Like it has to be about games. But what it was, I had no idea. And I showed up on that first day, and I remember.
Wait, so you took the job without knowing? Like there was no
totally blind,
no disclosure, no NDA,
just totally blind. What? It was actually. I will go on record and say it was the hardest professional decision of my life.
I can imagine.
Very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's a leap of faith, a little bit. I mean, Google, but still,
Just both professionally and personally. So many of my closest personal friends are from that time working at PlayStation. So many people I worked with at PlayStation are there in these really high-level executive roles now. Mm-hmm. And, obviously we're working with PlayStation. I get to see these folks and I'm like, man, just feels so good. Like, to me, that will always be home. Took it sight unseen. And I remember the first time they told me what I was going to be working on at Google, they said, okay. And there's a room. There's probably about 10 of us at the time. They said, all right, Jack, we're going to build a game platform. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exciting. Where's everybody else? They're like, no, just the 10 of us. This is it. I'm like, no.
Special project.
Yeah, so I was the first sort of industry person they had brought in to build what would eventually become Stadia.
Right.
And I remember those early days, like Google had never done anything like this before. They certainly had incredible technology.
Right,
but
they had
building
infrastructure, clearly,
They just, and so they brought me in as like somebody to help them on that journey, and specifically really focusing on making sure that we could reach out to the games industry and get some games on this platform.
Yeah,
but at the time, it was a presentation.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of there at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So to take, in my first 5-ish years at Google, to take something from literally just an idea
it's like a
to
product.
an actual launched game platform with the biggest game developers in the world and countries all of, like, what a ride. No one, I like to say at the time, like, I would always remind the team, like, because it was really hard to do, like, no one has built a game platform entirely from scratch at scale since the original Xbox. Yeah. Right? That was the last, was that 2001? Like, there's a reason why people don't do this every day. It's incredibly hard. Yeah. And the fact that we grew that team and we got the games on the platform, we got that thing launched, man, ride of a lifetime. What fun.
Some good people over there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, Google's such a special place to work. I feel so fortunate to be there. I've been there over 10 years now. I can't believe it's the longest duration I've ever stayed at a company. I have no intention of ever going anywhere because you working inside that company, you literally are seeing the future. Yeah. It is just so exciting. And in my role, what I get to do is I get to take the best of Google technology and bring that to the games industry. Yeah, and it's just like a dream job, like you couldn't believe.
You went from one dream job to the other.
Exactly. You've been very fortunate in that regard.
One last thing about Stadia, I definitely don't need to relitigate what happened, with Stadia.
All good. I was there for all of it.
Yeah. What I'm really more interested in, is the bridge. Like what did that period teach you that you carried directly into the work today?
Yeah. So
Google Cloud.
Yeah. No. Gosh, so much. But I'll tell you that experience of building a game platform from scratch and even building games, because Google even had, was building games at the time. That taught our company so much about the games industry. Like there's no better teacher than getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, just jumping and rolling up your sleeves.
Yeah. So the company to this day now knows how to build a game platform. They know how to build a video game. Yeah. Like we don't do it now, right? Like,
you got that process documented. You figured it out. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Of course, we have the Play Store and tons of mobile games in the Play Store, but this idea of a dedicated game platform, like we've done it before. And we're in this incredible position now where we deeply understand the business. We deeply understand development. We deeply understand how to operate a platform. But we're only there to help.
Yeah.
Right? We're only there to bring in the technology, bring in the solutions, help accelerate the biggest game companies in the world, as well as the smallest, most innovative game companies you could imagine, like across the entire industry. We learned so much from that experience. It was just invaluable. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because you went from, a product for consumers to moving to B2B, right?
That's right.
Yeah. What does it mean to take the games organization out of, the consumer side, right? And put it inside the cloud infrastructure side of Google?
Yeah. So my role now, I work at Google Cloud. I lead our global games initiative. And my role, again, is to take the best technology from Google and make that available to the games industry. And it's a B2B motion, right? So it's not a consumer-facing business, right? So when I made the move over to Google Cloud, I already had that background in B2B. Obviously, I've been the recipient of it at PlayStation prior to that at Dolby, many years selling into the games industry platforms and technology and stuff like that. So it was a very natural fit for me. And I was really excited to get back into that sort of line of work, that role, because, man, when you're going B2B, you're working on video games and platforms that are not released yet and not announced yet. And nobody knows about this stuff. And oftentimes I'm like one of the very first people to see this game in pre-production and going, whoa. Yeah. Like you literally get a window into the not near future, the distant future. Yeah. And you see, because games take years to build. Right.
Yeah. You're seeing new technologies, new engines, new.
That's right. So I showed up at Google Cloud and we had already started doing some work in the games industry as an organization, but we took it from just a few companies using Google Cloud to now all 10 of the biggest game companies in the world are using Google Cloud. And if you look, so many small indies are using our technology to scale their abilities. It is just incredible. And it's like the best education. The technology there is just absolutely mind-blowing. I learn something new every day. And things are just moving so fast. It's so incredibly exciting. And it's Google, right? It's filled with a bunch of people that love games. So people love to get involved with the industry and roll up their sleeves and try to figure out how to make the technology work for the games industry. It's awesome. It really is.
So let's talk about what is the games industry actually buying from Google Cloud in 2026?
Yeah. So in the early days, we really focused on all of the things that would allow a game to go online, right? Mm-hmm. So you could call it live service, you could call it online multiplayer. There's a lot of different words that mean very specific things to people. But, if you look at today's games, you would be very, very hard pressed to find a game that is completely disconnected from the internet, right? Even single player adventure games are, collecting telemetry and trying to figure out what the next DLC drop is going to be.
Handshakes, check-ins.
Exactly, right? Like it's everywhere. And so that was what we focused on in those early days, things like analytics platforms so that game companies could understand their players and what they were doing in the game and what they wanted. Databases so that the game could actually store what you had done and so that we had global consistency, right? If you look at some of these old online games, they're very local, right? You can only play in this particular region, but today these games are global. So how do you do that? And then game servers, right? How do you build these simulations that can keep, potentially 100+ people together in sync in a particular game? Like that stuff is non-trivial. Remember my old head of content, Catherine, saying that was the hardest problem in computer science. And here I was at Google, like we knew how to do it. Like we had scaled these massive live platforms like YouTube and the Play Store to billions of people. So to make that available to video games saying, hey, look, you don't have to worry anymore about your game falling over on launch day. Like that's not going to happen. Focus on building a great game.
Yeah, we'll handle the rest.
We'll handle the underlying infrastructure to make sure you have a great day one, week one, month one. Yeah. Right. And to effectively remove that problem from game development was such a huge passion of mine. Okay, that was the first few years. But today, obviously, AI is the focus of just about every conversation we're having in the games industry. The online technology absolutely is still underpinning so many of the games you play on a daily basis. But AI, specifically in 3 areas, has been a huge focus for us. AI for game development, really using it like it's kind of like an Iron Man suit, I like to say.
Yeah, I read that, and I think that would love to dig into that.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, well, shout out to Adam Boyes and Mark Stanley for coming up with the metaphor.
Love it.
This idea, what we found in game development, the practical reality of how AI is being used is it's being used to augment people.
Right, it's not a replacement.
There was a lot of fear of that a couple years ago, but the practical reality is we're just not seeing that. What we're actually seeing is that it's like the Iron Man suit, right? It doesn't do much without a human inside, but you put a human inside and suddenly you're able to do all kinds of stuff you couldn't do before. And obviously AI has a great diversity of things that it could do in a development pipeline. But what we've seen it used for time and time and time again, it's really become the pattern, is to remove the low value, high friction drudgery. The stuff that people just don't want to do. That's really, really repetitive. It's not creative. Things like debugging. Sure. Right? Like
QA.
A lot of QA. But even with QA, you're seeing AI do things like, find like obviously broken things in the game, but they still need human play testing, right? They still need the human QA engineers going, hey, I got this sword on level 3 and I read the game design document. I didn't really expect to have that much power this early in the game. That kind of stuff still is very much human driven, but being augmented by AI. And I think that's just such an exciting space for the industry to be in right now.
Yeah.
Specifically because it's getting so expensive to build a video game.
It is.
And we all see what's happening out there in the industry. Studios are getting closed and games are getting canceled. And a lot of that, it's just very expensive to do. And it takes years and years and years to get a game to market. So anything we can do to remove the pain so that people can focus on the high value creative work, that's just going to result in a better video game at the end. And you're going to be able to do that at, lower cost with the same number of people. So it seems to have found that equilibrium. And we've seen a lot of, people come out from major game companies talking about, that's exactly how we're using it. We're using it to augment our people, to remove that drudgery, the stuff that people just don't want to do. Yeah. Our team size is the same. All of these messages are coming out publicly now. And I think it really is a good moment for AI in development. I'll tell you what's coming next though. And this is the stuff that gets me out of bed in the morning more than anything else, which is the player experience stuff. That, when you start... Yeah. Well, games have had AI during runtime of the game for 40 years.
Sure.
Right? It's the reason why I have the arcade Miss Pac-Man in my living room, because it doesn't follow patterns, right? The AI in Miss Pac-Man is significantly better, right? You can't just memorize it. Right. I love that. It's such a beautiful example of early AI in a game making a huge difference into what a franchise can do from a player experience standpoint. and you go to, the evolution of AI in games over time obviously got more sophisticated in the 90s, definitely came onto its own where, non-player characters started to behave in ways that were more and more realistic. But today, games can understand context and intention. And I'm seeing game designs come out that are able to leverage AI during real time, during actual gameplay, to do stuff that simply would have been impossible a couple years ago. And that to me is like the super exciting stuff. Like, what are the next generation game designs that are using this latest iteration of AI? And I can't emphasize that enough. This is a through line going all the way back to the 70s, right? To actually push the state of the art of what a game can do forward in a way that's not just higher resolution graphics, like fundamentally new game designs.
Yeah.
Super exciting stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, talking about that, I read that you said at GDC in 2026, so recently, that this year is like kind of the year that companies stop. I'm reading from my notes because there's some dense stuff here. Companies stop using AI in one or two parts of their workflow, and this is the year that they will, and start using it across the whole workflow. So 5 months in, do you feel like that's still a thing? Like that's holding?
I do. I think, if you looked back a couple years ago when AI, the sort of modern iteration of generative AI, so whether that's code generation or generative AI for operational aspects, or, a lot of people when they hear generative AI, they immediately go to art. But actually art is a very, very small part of what AI can do. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, so many game developers are coming out going, hey, none of the art you're seeing in the final product is generated by AI, because actually what AI is being used for is that repetitive, high friction work. So we made a big announcement about Capcom and what they were doing with debugging.
Yeah, can we talk a little about that? Yeah, what are they doing?
They're saving 30,000 hours a month in human toil debugging, freeing their programmers and engineers and other creative staff to build great video games and not just sit there and try to stamp bugs out all day long. Like, that is such a perfect example of how AI is being used throughout these pipelines in ways that I think from a player perspective, when you hear the word AI, you don't immediately go to debugging.
Right.
But actually that's where it's being used.
Yeah.
Like that's an example of just an absolute killer use case. And there's so many other examples like this, maintaining an operational pipeline, or just, checking pricing on items in your game, stuff like that. Like AI is quite good at, and the people on these teams are pretty thankful not to have to do that stuff and can actually do something of much higher value. In the case of QA, we're seeing a lot of QA teams actually just really focus on the actual play testing and game balancing and getting that feedback back into the core development team about how to make the game play even better. So at the end of the day, what does that mean? That means the game you get on day one is actually much better than it would have been otherwise, just from a quality standpoint.
I saw on the website, I'll share the link also below in the show notes, that there's a game by a company called 10-6, You versus Zombies.
Yes, You versus Zombies.
Yeah, how are they implementing AI in their game?
Yeah, so this speaks to sort of the more future-looking stuff, where the AI is actually not being leveraged in the development pipeline, but it's actually being leveraged during gameplay, right? Yeah. This is really exciting stuff. So there's an indie developer, 10-6, so shout out to 10-6. They're building a game called You versus Zombies, and one of the ways they're using AI is when you create your character. And that's why the name of the game is You versus Zombies, because you can make it you, right? You just say, hey, this is what I want my character to look like, and it will render the character. But the system was actually designed by the art lead. And so the art lead spent a lot of time developing the visual style of the game, and then teaching AI, teaching AI, this is the art style. So when the player describes what they want their character to look like, make sure you do it in the exact style of the game. So it's a really, really cool example of a whole new way to create characters in games using natural language in a way that absolutely fits perfectly in the art style and world of the game. And that's just one example of so many things we're seeing out there, like entirely new, super innovative ways of using AI during gameplay.
Do you have any other examples you could share?
There's so many. There's a game being developed called Colony. Basically, it's a strategy game, if you will. A couple things are going on in Colony that worth calling out. Like, again, you can generate cosmetics in 3D using natural language. Right, so you're not just reliant on the stuff that was actually pre-built in the game. You can actually kind of describe exactly what cosmetics you want your avatar to use, but it's also using a new game design where the game itself learns while you're playing it, and then when you stop playing, the game keeps playing. It keeps going. It's persistent.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's cool.
What? Yeah. No, it's super exciting. And talking to like, what does that mean from a game design standpoint?
Yeah.
What are the new things we need to balance? Like, how is that more fun? How is that less fun? How do we actually make a game design where the world it never turns off?
Yeah, you're really transforming play.
Really transforming play. There's another one called Seed. It's a life simulator from Clang Games, again, underpinned by AI. And I mean, we've all played, life simulators before, but this is one that is completely predicated on intelligence, right? These seedlings, they call them, they have the context, they have situational awareness, they're intelligent. It's incredible. It's so cool. We just announced with Square Enix, Dragon Quest Online. Even the big studios are doing this stuff. We announced Chatty Slammy. So it's the blue slime from Dragon Quest, but wearing a little hoodie that's in the Google colors.
Amazing.
And when you show up in Dragon Quest Online, now Japan only, you have a buddy.
Yeah.
Right? And your buddy says, hey, and becomes your friend, and over time becomes kind of your best friend, and like cheers you on when you're in a fight, and kind of is bummed out when you lose, and if you need some help, can kind of help you out. And it's like the old days in college when you had your friend on the couch next to you, like talking about, hey, you should do this, hey, good job. Like, again, yet another example of integrating AI in real time into a game to create an entirely new player experience that just didn't exist before, right? And when you're that early with this stuff, like, again, there's no playbook, there's no rule book, there's no like best practices of how to design a game design around this stuff. So the companies that are at the cutting edge of this stuff now they're writing those rules as we go. It's so super exciting. It's exactly where I love to be in this industry.
Are any of the conversations that you enter in with like these publishers and studios and CTOs and everybody, are they hard conversations? Are they, is there a genuine interest? Do they feel like, wow, how do I get on board with this? All the above?
It's all of the above.
Yeah.
Right. So it really depends on what we're talking about. I mean, when you're focused on these tools, there's such a wide diversity of things that they can actually do.
Yeah.
Many game companies start with operationalizing the high toil, low value work, right? That's the stuff that they're like, look, this stuff's expensive. It's chewing up my most talented people, in terms of time. I want them focused on other things. Like, how do we automate that stuff in a way that's more effective than how we're able to automate it today? So a lot of the conversations start there because the return on their investment is pretty straightforward, and people tend to welcome this stuff in the studio. They're like, look, nobody wants to do this. So like, let the machine do it. So the conversation starts there. But what we've seen is that it over time goes into some of these more interesting aspects, right? And it's what we've called, if you look into the future, and again, you can never perfectly predict this stuff in the games industry, but we cooked up a term at Google called the living game that kind of describes where we see this stuff going, right? This idea that in the future you will have games, of course they're connected online and you're connected together, but they're actually intelligent in and of themselves. And they're evolving in an almost lifelike way that you couldn't do even just a few short years ago without this technology. And we're seeing the early glimpses of that stuff. So ultimately, our conversations with developers will move into that territory. Sometimes they're ready for that kind of stuff. Sometimes they're not. There's a lot of unsolved issues with this stuff that we're still working on today. Again, that's why it makes it exciting. But yeah, those more future-looking conversations are when things really get fun. Yeah. We also talk a lot about, one of the conversations we've been having a lot about in the industry as we look towards this future of living games and what happens when we're able to get these games to market at higher quality, with shorter timelines potentially. One of the things we talk a lot about is, what does that mean? What does the industry look like? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Can we imagine that industry? Like, what does the game industry look like in 3 years and 5 years?
I'm curious what your vision of
that is. So like. Again, I can't take full credit. So shout out to everybody that's been talking about this with us. Maybe it's our age. I don't know. But I look back at, my, near 30 years in the games industry, and one of the most exciting times for the industry, and I hope you'll agree with this, maybe not, that PlayStation 2 era.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
just a magical time for the games
Banger.
industry. Just banger after banger.
I call those
keep
the
up.
salad years.
You couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
You had, games were now moving into the territory where they were more expensive to build.
Yeah.
But they were still at a point where game publishers could build, 3, 4, 5 games at a time.
Yeah.
You'd have a launch slate. You'd have multiple games in a year. Not every game would be a hit. Mm-hmm. Right? And that would be okay. We saw all kinds of super experimental games.
Yeah, experimentation was,
new IPs. How many new IPs
People weren't
were
playing it safe, for sure.
Yeah. Like of course it was still a hits-driven business and you had to have a hit here and there, but not every game had to be like this massive block out the sun, run away, huge hit.
Right. For every God of War, whatever, there's a jumping flash or something.
Exactly.
Some little,
exactly. And as collectors today, that's the interesting stuff, right? To go
Vib
back to
Ribbon.
those deep cuts.
Yeah.
Exactly. Vib Ribbon. Oh, gosh. I bought that when it first came out in Japan.
Me too.
Great game. Sean Layden. Shout out. That's the conversation we've been having is like, is there a potential to return to a game industry where we can take risks again?
Yeah.
Where we're not stuck spending 10 years building a single game that has to be this huge hit. Can we build 5 games and have some experiments in there? Can we create some new IP again? Like, is that what this industry will become? I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Right? Because that again, the industry was just so healthy back then,
Yeah.
The salad days, like you said.
Was the salad days,
and I think, of course, nothing ever returns to exactly the way it was, but I think there are certainly lessons from the past and specifically that era that we could take into today's industry, and they're much more achievable using the technology of today, even than they were a couple of years ago.
To your point, technology facilitates we can have like amazing indie games where it's just a team of 2.
That's right.
Leveraging, the technology, whether it is AI or an engine like Unity or Unreal or whatever, and put together something amazing and beautiful and, heartwarming, and there's storytelling and, great gameplay and all that. It doesn't, it's, to your point, hopefully as the technology continues to advance, even the large manufacturers, the hardware companies like PlayStation or Microsoft or Nintendo could maybe then start taking those risks instead of going to playing it safe, right? To your point, like as much as I love God of War, another God of War or whatever it could be, or maybe they're able to make more.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like we talk about this all the time. I mean, right now, you'll have entries in a game franchise, and there will be so many years between entry that your demographic has literally aged out. Right. It's like changed their mind on what you're right. So imagine if we could just have more iterations in a franchise more frequently, these kinds of things. These are the things we talk about all the time because they're now more achievable than ever before. We haven't solved every problem. We haven't cracked every nut. Like not every studio is, using every tool to its fullest potential yet. But we're in that transition. It feels so much like when I first started my career. It really does.
Yeah.
It feels like, because when I first truly started in this industry, it was the late 90s. And I remember going to GDC in San Jose at that time. And I remember walking around and I was catching the very tail end of the transition from 2D to 3D.
Yeah.
I caught that
days.
moment. Yeah. And I remember it was just so, and console games, not quite yet, but PC games were starting to go online.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There were some talks about netcode or people talking about netcode. I forget exactly what it was, but like that was in the halls. This idea, like there was a real debate around game design in 3D. Like, how do you do it? Like, can you even do a single player narrative driven game in 3D? Like, is that even possible? Yeah. You had people saying, 3D just sucks the soul out of games. And I vividly remember these debates at Game Developers Conference back then in the late 90s, because at that time I was pretty confused as a young guy. I was like, this stuff is also cool.
Yeah.
Like, I love the 2D stuff. I mean, Neo Geo forever, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I love the 3D stuff too. Like, that stuff is like, it's all great.
Yeah, right. It's
right?
I was exactly the same as you. Like, I remember some of the, especially on the PC days, when you started talking about like that transitional, like 2D online, I immediately started thinking of like was it MechWarrior? Some of those like those original like I'm in a 3D environment. I'm going around. I'm interacting. I'm shooting with, fighting other players. Just it's crazy to think, like what you see now at a marathon or whatever live service game like those. Like it's kind of where it all started, and it's crazy how the technology just again facilitates and it changes and
it does, and we take it for granted now.
We do.
We take it we look back at online connected games. We look back at the early 3D games. Like there was no playbook back then.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Like how many people are going back and rediscovering the old 3D, versions of franchise that they love, and they're realizing, oh, this game has tank controls. It has tank controls because we hadn't yet figured out how to navigate 3D space with a controller properly yet. Like that takes time. And we're there again as an industry, specifically with AI and how to best leverage it. Like there is no playbook, and it's this really, really exciting time again. And the industry is probably the biggest transformation I've seen in how games are built and what's possible from a game design standpoint since back then.
You're in the room, so I may have a different perspective. For me, it seems like maybe the difference between then and now is that AI, the technology is moving so fast. It almost seems hard to keep up, It is hard. Yeah, no, I mean, even working at Google, like I mentioned, it's like you learn something new every day. I'm learning something new every day, not only because there's a lot to learn, but there's new stuff every day. Yeah.
And it's moving so fast, and it's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
On one hand, but on the other hand, I'll say, it's one of the big messages that we talk about a lot as an industry. It's like we've got to move, folks. Like this is moving real fast.
Yeah.
And
train's left the station.
The train has left the station, and we need to figure this stuff out in a hurry. Not the least of which because it's existential, but also because, it's a competitive industry, right? It's a competitive industry, and there are some studios that are just fully leaned into this stuff, right? And if you're not at least getting your hands dirty and trying to figure out how to implement this stuff in your development pipeline in an appropriate way, or you're not just thinking about what this means in terms of player experience in a few years, innovation is going to keep chugging forward. Yeah,
definitely feels different than like the Web3 revolution or NFTs or whatever. It's not like feels like it's definitely here to stay, and you kind of like you do have to figure it out and at least understand the mechanics of how you could be leveraging it, because I'm sure there will always be a market and an audience for people who want to just have an analog experience, maybe,
for sure,
or whatever. But
absolutely.
But there is the technology is going to continue to evolve, and you sort of have to understand.
Absolutely. And this goes back to our earlier conversation, Greg, which is like, it's not a zero-sum game. Like this is a big, diverse industry, and there's plenty of room for all different types of games, many different ways to build a video game.
Yeah.
Like if you want to build a video game without any use of AI, not even code generation, nothing, you want to do it, you want to write every line of code, absolutely.
Right, go for it.
And there's a market for that, for sure. You know, I mean, you're talking to the guy. I still make house music in my, on the side. Like I've got analog synthesizers, right, for a reason, right? Yeah. There's room in the industry. There's room in society for all different types of content, play experiences, ways to create content, and developers are finding what's appropriate for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's no argument is exciting times.
Indeed.
For sure. Before we wrap up our conversation, and I definitely want to make sure we didn't leave anything lingering on AI. So if there's anything we didn't cover, it's an important topic. Yeah. So definitely want to give it the space and room to talk about it. But I just, while I got you here, I mean, both of us are hardcore gamers, if there is a term. And we are still very much, have one foot in the future and one foot in the past, and we are collectors of games. So I definitely want to chat with you about that stuff.
I'm here for this.
But before we transition, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that would be good to make sure, we chatted on? Like what else is going on?
Well, I'll just close out the conversation by saying this. I think as an industry, it's so good to see the conversation that's happening online right now.
Yeah.
Because to your point, there's a lot of consternation around how to use AI, what's appropriate, what's not, what do our players expect, what do they not like. And that conversation's happening now. And we're seeing some of the biggest voices in the industry come out and say, look, this is our position as a company. This is how we're going to approach the technology. And I got to say, it is just such a wonderful thing to have that conversation being had in a healthy way. I actually think it's probably one of the most important things our industry is doing right now.
Yeah.
Is having that conversation with our players, having that conversation with each other, because you're seeing an industry that's figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just so exciting to watch. This is what I'm waiting for. Again, who knows? It's the games industry, right? So maybe you're watching this podcast 5 years from now and you're Jack, that never happened. So might not happen. But I wait for the day. There's going to be a day where somebody designs a game using cutting edge AI technology and provides a player experience that no one's ever seen before, and it's going to break through.
Yeah.
And it's going to be that
killer app.
It's going to be that killer app where everybody goes, oh. Yeah. Now, at Google, it's very hard to see that stuff because we don't build games, right? We're not game designers, right? We build the technology, but it's going to take some genius, maybe in an independent studio, maybe in a large studio. No one knows, but somebody is going to do something so innovative that it breaks through in a way that we've seen with other prior technologies. And I just can't wait for that moment. It's coming.
Be like that PlayStation 9 commercial they did.
Heck yeah. That's I love that.
Deep cuts.
Maybe the best.
Cool. Let's just really quickly, what I want to know what your, I want to know what your setup is. I've not had, thank you. You have invited me. I just have not
to come over
I've
and
not
check it
been
out.
over yet. Yeah. But what does it look like? What do you?
Well, I've got a pretty chunky game room, although it's spilled out to the rest of the house as my family will attest. But the core game room itself, it's filled with physical media. Filled. Even shops in Akihabara would have a tough time.
I love it.
Yeah, similar to you, right?
Yeah,
similar to you. But the room is all about playing. So yes, I'm a collector, but I don't collect just to collect. I collect to play. Yeah. Right. So every single game I play.
I love that. You break, like you said, you break the shrink wrap.
I just got Primal Rage for the Atari Jaguar CD and just took that shrink wrap off. But I just wanted that experience because I never got to do it back in the day. I was playing Jaguar, but I never picked up that game. Shame on me. Now it's very expensive. But yeah, that's what the room is all about. So I have, just row after row after row after row of consoles, probably 4, 8, 16, probably 22, 23, 24 game consoles all hooked up, many of which I grew up with.
To one.
Okay. So every single one has either been modified to output HDMI, because you can get these incredible kits from Pixel FX now where you can actually tap the raw digital video signal off the chips and route it to HDMI in a format that a modern TV can understand.
Pixel perfect.
Or it's been RGB modified, or it natively can output RGB. And for people that don't know RGB, that's like the highest quality analog video signal you can get. We all use SCART cables, which are these European standard cables that are big chunky things. So every console has either one of those two, and then it's all fed into a Hydra SCART switcher, which is pretty. Even if you're into SCART switchers, you might not even know the Hydra. But I did not. You can actually stack them. So I have enough so that it's automatically scanning for which console you turn on.
Yeah. So once it's powered on,
you turn on the Sega Saturn and it goes and locks in, and all that's going into a RetroTink 4K scaler.
Nice.
And then all of that stuff is, if I get the model right, it's the VPL XW6100 Sony 4K projector.
Oh wow! Okay,
this is like a very high-end native 4K projector. I'm into projectors. I just always have been. Yeah. I've got my LG OLED upstairs.
So it looks crisp and
huge screen, razor sharp pixels, and just like ultra low latency. Like everything is like single millisecond response time.
Of course.
Yeah. So the end experience is you pull a game off the shelf, you pop it into the Neo Geo or the Saturn or the Dreamcast.
Do you have a screen that?
Automatic. The screen comes down. Yeah. And then I've got one of those sofa baton remotes you can get off Amazon. It's got everything automated. I go, let's play. And everything's up, ready to go. Do that every night.
That's my fantasy.
Yeah. Everything from Atari 20. Actually, the Fairchild Channel F to the PlayStation 5 Pro. Everything ready to go, hooked up.
That is so cool.
The complete history of video games.
So cool. Do you have like a go-to, like a favorite? I mean, like for me, like I mean, I vacillate, but clearly you can see in our background. But ColecoVision is near and dear to me, as is Vectrex.
Yes.
So those two, I kind of like. I'll still play Neo Geo as well. But is there one that like you go to?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Neo Geo so much. I always go to. I have such a like you, got a pretty chunky collection of Neo Geo games.
Yeah.
AES CD. I've got a chunky CD collection as well. Neo Geo CD. So definitely go there. A lot of Dreamcast actually. I love Saturn. Sega. Love Sega.
Yeah.
Shout out to Itsumi-san. Just love every console they've ever built, but specifically Saturn and Dreamcast.
Yeah.
A lot of ColecoVision like you, so
we're
two pretty huge ColecoVision fans out there. And I actually have a couple arcades that I play quite a lot. I've got an original Asteroids.
Nice.
Yeah. I've got a Miss Pac-Man arcade, so definitely try to make sure, because I've got the high score kits installed. Back in those days, they couldn't save high scores, so I modified them so they could. Try to make sure my name's at the top of the leaderboard at any given time.
Got to get that high score. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say Neo Geo, close second might be Saturn. Of course, PlayStation 5, I'm probably playing more than anything else.
Yeah.
Playing a ton. I just finished Pragmata. Oh my gosh.
What a great game.
You want to talk about innovation.
I know. So I love that Capcom. They're on fire.
Absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
Absolutely on fire. And they are such a cutting edge studio. That's why, we made that announcement with at Google Cloud Next, our big trade show, about what Capcom was doing with AI. It's incredible to watch them. I mean, they are truly, they're leagues ahead of some other folks in terms of adopting cutting edge technology for specifically the things we were talking about, automating those, repetitive tasks. Like they're Capcom. I've been playing Capcom games my entire life, and you look at them now, and they're like one of the most advanced, forward-thinking game development suite of studios in the industry. I'm just like, yes, as a fan, I'm like, I couldn't be happier.
Excited for Onimusha. I can't wait.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Yeah.
This is again. I know we got to wrap it up, but and thank you again for all your time today. Going back to AI, is there a territory that, kind of how you're talking about Capcom, they're a Japanese company. Is there a territory that's getting it more than in others? Are you seeing? In your discussions?
I'll tell you, we do business all over the world.
China?
Yeah. Well, that's just it, right? So we deal with game developers all over Europe, even in the Middle East, South America, North America, Japan, Korea, China, all over the world. It's a global business. And again, one of the things that makes it exciting, because you see the games industry in different parts of the world. There's similarities, right? But there's also some big differences. And it is incredible to watch what's happening with game development studios based in China.
Yeah.
They are just adopting AI at a rate that is pretty mind-boggling. Tencent announced, I think, over 40 games already using AI.
Yeah.
And, we talk to these companies all the time. It's just, they're doing some incredible innovative stuff over there. I'll tell you also, Japan. Yeah. It's incredible to watch what's going on in Japan. I mentioned, some of the examples I gave today, Capcom, Square Enix, these are the companies that are pushing the state of the art forward. So you go to Japan and you look at some of these designs that they're building and ways that they're leveraging AI in their development pipeline. And it's just like, Japan's really far ahead with this stuff. And it's great to see. As somebody has been spending the last 30 years going back and forth to Japan and watching the evolution of the Japanese games industry, to see them really take the lead like this, it's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome.
It's funny how cyclical things are. They do just, like Japan was, remember there was a time when Japan was the shit. Then the US kind of caught up and for a while was sort of eating their lunch, and it
all goes in waves.
Yeah.
What's new tomorrow was here yesterday, right?
100%.
It's it all goes in waves. So there are areas of the world where you see, but truly it's a global thing at this point. Yeah. A lot of these sort of like this territory's ahead or this territory. These days it's becoming so common. I think we had a stat that we announced around Gamescom last year. 9 out of 10 game developers were leveraging AI in their development pipeline to some extent. Right? Even if it's just some tiny little pre-production automation task. Even back then, almost a year ago, we were seeing that kind of adoption. So it really is truly a global phenomenon now. But maybe I just have a soft spot for Japan.
I do too. So I understand it. All right. Last question, and I'm going to let you go. I asked this with all of my guests. So just curious, if you could go back and replay one game from scratch, not having ever experienced before, what would that be? Like, and why? Like, do you have that one game?
Oh man, I mean, it's such a
it is a tough question.
I know.
I get it. I'm sorry.
It's really tough. If I could just go back and play home again.
Yeah.
And they're rebuilding it. Like a fan community is trying to.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
Those days, I remember coming home from work.
Yeah.
And just going into PlayStation Home and just hanging out.
Yeah.
And like just being with the community and that.
It was a cool platform.
Oh, I spent so many hours in there. If I could just be in there for a few more hours, I would do that.
We made a couple games like what do they call it? Gaming. Basically, like we made a game for like Totino's and home.
Yeah,
off-based it. My company.
We had advertising in games.
Yeah,
Who knew,
I know.
Right? Yeah, that's another thing we were doing back then.
Yeah,
it
was good times.
I would do. But honorable mentions. I'd love to play Doom 2016 again from scratch. Like that just took this. First time I played that. Because we all grew up with Doom, but to see Doom 2016, it was just like, oh my gosh, id Software just knocked it out of the park.
That was a great experience.
Super cool. Another big moment that I just would love to... that bullet hell shooter, Escaluda 2?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We were just talking
have it
about
on the IGS, the original on IGS out here.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that came out for mobile?
I do, as a matter of fact, actually, yeah.
I remember sitting in a meeting at Sony with Pete Edward, who had led the home platform group at the time, and it had just come out, and I remember sitting there on the mobile phone playing a bullet hell shooter.
Yeah, you're like, how is this possible?
And it was just so playable.
Yeah.
And the meeting was over at that point. Pete and I were just talking about, how cool is this? Oh my gosh. It's so cool. So that'd be another, that was that big aha moment for me where I was just like, oh yeah, mobile games are getting very, very good.
That is another discussion for another day, but I will just, before we go, say, like, it's really interesting as a father of 9 and 10-year-old kids now, like the difference from my experience growing up and theirs from, in their relationship with games, like it is literally, they don't pick up a controller. They don't want to. They could care less. Their dad has every game like you, that in the history of games at their fingertips. They just want to be on their tablets and playing Roblox and hanging out with their friends, whether, and dress to impress or, steal a brain rot or grow a garden or whatever the game of the day is, it's like, it's just interesting. And,
it's a whole different, Roblox. Gosh, that's, again, talk about another conversation. That is an incredible platform. And, drawing the parallels between what's going on in Roblox right now and what was happening in PlayStation Home, that's its own conversation. Right. Yeah. But, the kids are going to be all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually look at this generation and the amount that they're playing games and how they're engaging with games. Yeah, it's completely different than the way that I grew up. But I like that. Like that. You see some of the Roblox games hitting those concurrency records and stuff. I'm like, yes, this is so awesome. Completely different.
Yeah, they're consuming in a different way, but they're still playing.
But super, super awesome. Yeah, and I look back at what my experience was when I was a young boy. We didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a ton of games. I sat in our basement and played Altered Beast until the buttons didn't work.
Right, but got the blisters to show it, right?
That's right. And so you can see through lines, to the kids today. But ultimately, I definitely played more than Altered Beast, right?
Yeah.
Ended up defining my career and played tons of different games. But back in those old days, it was a lot of Altered Beast. Once I had a Sega, before that was Ninja Gaiden over and over and over and over again. Yeah. I was so good at that game.
Games were hard, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
It's such an honor to have you join and chat with me. So thank you.
That's very kind of you to say.
And where can people find out more information about Google Cloud, what's going on in gaming?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is a Google search for Google Cloud for games.
Yeah.
But we're at GDC. We'll be at Gamescom. We're definitely, if we're not talking to you already, please reach out to us, big or small. right?
Awesome.
We have plenty of people working with us that are just a single person working in their bedroom, right? So yeah, we're here to help in any way. And just give us a quick search and get in touch and yeah, let's make some magic together.
Brilliant.
All right.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Good to have you.
All right.
That's Jack Buser, Global Director for Games, Strategic Industries at Google Cloud, and 30 years into one of the most consequential careers the game industry has produced. Links in my show notes below, and if this conversation was useful to you, please subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend. I'm Greg Off, and this is Replay.